Hello guys, welcome to Consult 101 Module 2 Recorded Guesstimates by Case Club IIT Madras. So today we were supposed to have Iniyan Ramasamy with us, but unfortunately he couldn't join because of some network connection issues. Nevertheless, the question that we are going to solve today was asked to him in his Dalberg placements interview, and the solution and structure has been provided by him only. So by saying thanks to him, let's begin. As you already know, the link to our mini casebook is in the description. I highly recommend you open it simultaneously on another device to understand Indian structure better. I also request you to pause this video in between and think about your own approach first. This will be extremely beneficial. Moreover, please try to practice in a similar way with your case groups and partners to maximize learning, because we have tried to replicate the interview room as much as possible. So let's start with the guesstimate. The replacement for Iniyan today is, as you may already know him, Rohan, the co-founder. So,
Hi,
hi Rohan,
yeah, hi Ayush.
how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine.
Yeah,
So, Rohan, let's do a guesstimate.
yeah, sure, absolutely.
So, how has the last year been, Rohan? Like, what are you frequently using? Google Meet, Zoom, Teams? I'm
Uh,
sure you have been losing a lot of these.
yeah, definitely. So, like in my interns right now, like Zoom is the way to go. Like everyone uses Zoom. So, yeah,
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's the case with me too. Cool.
yeah.
So, Rohan, on that note, can you uh, estimate for me how many people are gonna log into Zoom in the very next moment?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, like, hey, if possible, like, can I have 1 minute to like just have a structure in my mind so that like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can
sure. Take
approach?
your time. Take your
Yeah.
time.
By the way, in this question, we are assuming Zoom used for only professional purposes like offices and all, right?
Yeah, yeah. You can neglect
Yeah,
household. Yes.
cool, cool. Yeah. Also, like since the time right now is 2 p.m. over here, so like I'm using that only as a reference, like to do my calculations.
Yeah, yeah. Sure.
Sure. Okay, so for now, like I have a brief structure in my mind. So basically, I have divided the world into two parts.
Okay.
So one is behind GMT, that is the Americas, and one
Okay.
is like after GMT, which is like Europe, Asia, Africa, and all.
Okay.
So my approach is since it's like 2 p.m. right now at India, so basically America will be at night time, so there won't be any professional meetings over there.
Okay.
All the meetings will be restricted only to Europe, Asia, and Africa, more or less.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So you're
so
kind of considering the world as near symmetric.
more or less, like I'm not exactly considering equal division of population. I will
Okay.
come to that later, but yeah, I mean I'm dividing it. Yeah.
Sure.
So basically, like I am taking the population for Europe, Africa, and Asia, and then like these are three different zones, and like I am first trying to find how many employees are there from these continents, and
Okay.
then I am trying to find how many of those employees actually use Zoom for their official meetings. So this will basically give an idea about how many employees might be using Zoom in their office meetings, and then I'll like proceed towards like how to go about like
So your structure is the relevant population into the employee rate, like like one minus the unemployment rate, and
yeah, yeah,
that into the number of people, basically the market share of Zoom.
correct, absolutely right.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
Right. So, so like uh, it's like safe to assume that the world population is about 7 billion. So, like, is that a fair assumption?
The world population is about 7 billion. Yes, you can go ahead.
Yeah, and out of that, basically, Africa and Asia together make 5 billion because especially Asian countries like
Yeah,
China, like India and all are very populated. So Africa and Asia make 5 billion. Europe is one, and America is 1 billion.
okay, okay, okay,
Okay, yeah. So right now we are not considering America for our consideration because it's nighttime over there.
okay.
So basically, in Europe, first let's start with Europe. So in
Hmm.
Europe, the population we have assumed is 1 billion people,
Okay,
and over here also, like in the employment rate, we need to keep in mind one thing, that we don't need to like consider the whole employment rate, because like many people would be like employed in supermarkets or constructions and all, but they won't be using Zoom. So basically we would have to consider corporate employment rate, like people working in banks
so
or
basically, you're making a division between blue collar and white collar employees.
exactly, yeah, right,
Okay,
right. So in Europe, since I mean there are not many farms and stuff like that, and since the area is small, so I assume that white collar jobs are quite prevalent over there.
okay.
So is like 50% a good assumption for like white collar jobs in Europe?
So we are talking only about Europe or
On,
our entire Europe, Asia, Africa.
only about Europe for now.
Yeah, 50 makes sense. Yes.
Sure, 50. Okay, so Europe goes to 50, and for Africa and Asia, like more or less, like their developments are more or less similar, not exactly same,
Uh-huh.
but since in both in Africa and Asia, farming is a very big source of employment, so
Mm-hmm.
the number of white collar jobs will be really less. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, is 10% a valid assumption for Asia and Africa, like, or
10 seems a bit less, Rohan. I think we can go ahead with 20.
sure, absolutely, like 20% is fine, good enough.
Okay.
So yeah, so basically that gives us 500 million Europeans are currently employed in white collar jobs, and 1 billion people from Africa and Asia are currently like employed in white collar jobs. Like these are only like white collar jobs.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Now coming to the market share, so we know that like America, Europe, like these are more Zoom prevalent. I mean, Zoom holds much larger market share. So is it safe
Correct.
to assume that it's about 75%?
75. That does seem a bit on the higher side, but as again, the explanation you're giving, yes, Zoom is much, much more prevalent in the
Right.
corporate world. So I think,
Correct.
yeah, we can go ahead with it.
Sure. So for Europe, we are taking 75%. And for Africa and Asia, like we know that Google Meet, Microsoft Teams are like a bit more
Mm-hmm.
popular as compared to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So can we assume it to be around 40% for Africa and Asia?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Sure. So now we are trying to calculate how many of these white collar job people actually are using Zoom for their professional purposes.
Okay.
So for Europe, that comes around 375 million people,
Okay.
and for Africa and Asia, it comes around 600 million people.
Okay.
Okay, so like now if we sum up for Africa, Europe, and Asia all together, then we get around 975 million people who are currently like employed and are using Zoom for their official purposes.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Now, in a typical corporate setting, like if we assume like 8 hour job, like
Okay.
uh, so, uh, it's safe to assume that about 2 hours is like an average duration in which like people spend for meetings. I mean, it definitely depends on role to role, but still, is
Makes sense.
yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So So for that, like we can assume that right now in these countries, like 25% of the people will be currently like inter not sorry, they will be like inside a meeting. So that comes around 975 into 1 by 4, so it's
Around 250.
like just below, I mean, yeah, 240, 250 around that,
Right.
yeah, 242.5 or something like that. So according to me, right now, like in the world, like 242 million people are currently like using Zoom for meeting purposes.
Great.
Yeah,
So, Rohan, if I were to synthesize your approach, basically what you did is, according to the GMT line, you
yeah,
divided the world into two parts.
sure,
One where there's currently working hours going on, and the other one, Americas, where there's night.
right,
So we figured out that it's working time in Europe, Asia, and Africa,
right.
right? And then we multiplied it by.
Then we multiplied it by employment rate for white collar jobs. So
So right, you
yeah,
considered employees, and within employees, you considered the white collar jobs, and
right,
then we multiplied by the relevant employment rates in the particular areas,
correct.
and further you multiplied it by the market share of
Market
Zoom,
share. Yeah,
and then we calculated the probabilities. Is that right?
exactly. You're right. Like we made an assumption like 25% of the working hours is like utilized in meetings. So we like took 25% of 975. It's around 242. So yeah.
That's cool. That's cool, Ron. That
Okay.
will be all. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, guys, I hope you liked the case. It was a bit absurd, I know, when you must have heard the question, but yeah, this was actually asked in the placement interview, so such questions are kind of important. What I would like to highlight from the case is Rohan's approach was again very messy. The one thing that even you would have noted is that within the employees, he divided between white collar and blue collar employees. That's one thing that a lot of people miss. They just directly take the employment rate. Another factor that he did correctly was dividing the world according to the relevant time zones. Lastly, the probability part, that 25% of your time is actually spent in meetings on an average, was an excellent assumption. So yeah, these were some positive points. Moreover, in the entire interview, he kept me engaged. What's more important is to keep the interviewer engaged, and continue thinking in a messy way. It's okay if you are not sure of where you're going, or it's not very important to be correct. Your number can be way far from the reality, but it's not the numbers that the interviewer is actually interested in, but it's the approach. So with that, thank you, Rohan.
Thank you, Ayush.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can close the case now, and we can stop the recording. Thank you, guys.